Have you spotted a pair of running shoes that you've absolutely fallen in love with?
And are the soles of your old reliables wearing through?
Well, don't worry, because Andy and I are here today to run you through some of the best running shoes out there at the moment. We'll be looking at best everyday shoes, the best racers, and the best pair you can get your hands on for £100 or less.
And we mean what we say. We've been taking all of these shoes out for a test to see which ones we like best. And in fact, in today's video, we're going to be out running in them whilst giving you a little bit more details all about them.
Plus, none of the brands featured today have paid us to say nice things about them, so you can guarantee that these are Andy and I's own opinions.
Let's get stuck in and show you the shoes.
First up, we're going to be looking at everyday shoes. So these are the kinds of shoes that you can run in, day out, any kinds of run, all-rounders basically. And I'm going to kick things off with the New Balance Fresh Foam 1080 V11s. Now, for some of you eagle-eyed Running Channel fans who've watched our previous Best Shoes video, you will notice that we did include this in our last roundup. And we're putting it back in again because it is just such a stalwart of the New Balance brand. It features New Balance's Fresh Foam technology and has a sturdy upper, which makes it an all-round comfortable shoe. So it's time for me to pop these on and get them tested on the TRC test track. So compared to the 10th version of this shoe, the cushioning is ever so slightly firmer. So the booty style is super supportive and holds your foot in place. It's really secure around the heel as well. And I found that it was a really good fit, true to size for me. Didn't need to size up or anything, and there was plenty of room in the toe box for my slightly wider foot too. I'd say £135 is pretty reasonable for this level of shoe. It's such a good all-rounder. You can pretty much do any run in it. And I found that on my longer runs, so I did a 16k in it, and even towards the end, when your feet tend to get a little bit tired, they were still feeling pretty great.
I'm kicking off with the Asics Novablast 2, an improved version of the original Novablast from Asics. The shoe features a heel stabiliser as well as FF Blast cushioning, which is aimed at giving athletes a more energetic rebound underfoot. So I really liked the original Novablast. They were soft, incredibly bouncy and comfortable as soon as you put them on, but they were a little bit unstable and they felt a little bit wobbly, particularly if I was on a longer run or I was starting to get fatigued in faster efforts. I just felt like they didn't keep my foot very stable, and that's what's been addressed in the Novablast 2. They've made the platform wider, made the drop a little bit lower, and added in some foam on the medial side to hopefully bolster that stability. And from as far as I can tell, it's made a big difference. They do feel as fast and bouncy and soft as the previous version, but with that added stability, so I don't feel like I'm wobbling around at this slower pace I'm running at now, or even when I've tried picking up the pace a little bit too. They're a great, what I'd call, rhythm running shoe. So once you get into a pace, whether that's a slow recovery run or a faster tempo run, feel like you could go at that pace for quite some time. They help you to maintain that pace. And they're quite a departure for Asics. They're a cool looking shoe. So if you're familiar with that brand and thinking that maybe it's a little bit boring, this might be a shoe that's worth considering.
The Adidas Adizero Boston 10s are a shoe that was in my shoe rotation when training for the Berlin Marathon last year. So although these are marketed by Adidas as a competition ready shoe, doesn't mean that you can't take them out on your everyday training runs. Adidas have packed some pretty nifty features into the Boston 10s, including some curved carbon infused energy rods. So the curving of them is so that they mimic the shape of your foot and your metatarsals, which is pretty cool. So as I mentioned, these are one of the pairs of shoes that I did some of my marathon training in last year. And to be honest, they're a little bit on the heavy and sort of stiff side. So they're great for steady running, easy long runs. If you want to get anything quick out of them, these aren't the shoe for you. They've also been drastically upgraded from the previous iteration of the Bostons, much to the debate online raging about the changes that have been made. Now, I never wore the previous Bostons, so I can't comment on that. But fair to say, they've been completely redesigned. The fit, I think, comes up a bit narrow, but I do have a wider foot.
The Mizuno Wave Rider 25 features Mizuno's signature wave plate, which aims to uniformly distribute the force of foot strike across the foot. It also incorporates Mizuno's Energy foam to give you extra rebound and a smooth toe off. I really liked the Wave Rider 24, and I felt that when Mizuno introduced their new Energy foam to those shoes, it was a sea change to what the brand had been able to achieve previously. And with the 25, they've taken what was already a very good shoe that I really liked and made it better. Just ask Sarah from the running channel, who ran her first ever marathon in the Wave Rider 25 in Amsterdam last year. Now, one of the first things that I noticed was it's not as soft as the Nike Pegasus 38 or the Asics Novablast 2, but it does feel more stable than either of those shoes. And that's because of the inherent design, the wave geometry in the shoe. I'd definitely say that these feel like the most stable shoes on test. So if you're worried about your kind of knees dropping in, pronation, but you want to wear a neutral shoe, then this could be a really good option. It is a pretty traditional running shoe. It's got a 12mm drop. So if you're used to running in something like HOKAs or you're looking for a lower drop shoe, this one's definitely not for you. But it's a fantastic all-rounder. One that I'd consider wearing for my easy recovery runs right up to my longest run if I was training for a marathon. They'll do a really good job.
The On Cloudstratus, which you can probably tell has been worn pretty well in testing, features a double layer of On's Cloud tech, which means that it's got increased cushioning. Now, it transitions really well from the road to trails, which you might be able to tell from the amount of mud on these ones. The fit of this shoe is a little on the snug side, to the point where I actually had to check to make sure that I did have the right size and they hadn't just sent a pair that was half a size too small. So even for length, not just my wide foot, I would size up by at least half a size in these. So try them on if you can. That said, all in all, this shoe is a great all-rounder. Ideal for beginners, but it's a lovely shoe just to add into your rotation for anything really. It excels at the kind of easy runs, steady runs.
The Nike Pegasus has been a staple amongst the running community for years, and with the 38th version they only make very small changes to the very successful 37th version, namely a slightly wider forefoot and an improved upper and added padding on the tongue. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I've done literally hundreds of miles in the Pegasus 37, and any shoe that gets to number 38 in its model numbers deserves paying attention to. Now, what they've done with the 38 is improve all of the bits I didn't like about the 37 and keep all of the things that I did. So the things that it's kept is the React foam. In fact, the midsole is identical, so is the outsole, so the grip is the same. And that brilliant midsole, the React foam, makes you feel like you can take on any distance really. So short, shuffling recovery runs at a slow pace, right up to longer pace, faster runs, threshold, tempo runs. Now, it's not an all-and-out racer, so if you did want to run faster or a specific shoe for speed work, then this isn't necessarily it, but it is a brilliant all-rounder. The outsole also gives you great grip, and that hasn't been changed since the 37. Now onto the things that they've changed for the better from the 37 to the 38, namely the lacing system, the tongue, and the way it fits with the upper. So it's a completely redesigned tongue. It's still gusseted, so it's connected to the upper at the sides, but it gives a really nice tight fit, which was actually quite hard to achieve with the 37. So even with my narrow foot, I felt really locked in on runs. Similarly, whilst I've got a narrow foot, the toe box has been improved to actually make it a little bit roomier, but that didn't give me any problems and actually just felt like I had a little bit extra space to expand to on those longer runs where your foot gets a little bit hot. So all in all, if you're looking for a good all-rounder, then this is a great choice. Next, let's take a look at the shoes that we think are best suited to racing, whether that's your local 5K or a world marathon major. And we're going to start with the shoe that started it all in the super shoe world, and that's the next iteration of Nike's Vaporfly range, in this case the Nike ZoomX Vaporfly Next Percent 2. It still retains the iconic carbon plate and midsole combination, but with a new upper made of a very breathable mesh fabric. The Next Percent 2 is an evolution of the original super shoe. One of the brilliant things about it is that it feels incredible straight out of the box. You don't really need to break these in, but if you haven't run in super shoes before with a carbon plate, high stack height, and one of these new foams, then they do take a little bit of getting used to, because they really do push you forwards. Now, they're the original and possibly still the best if you were to take a look at the feet of what elites around the world are wearing in big city marathons, half marathons and 10Ks, and still running super quick times. There's not a massive change here from the original Next Percent. They've changed the upper to make it more breathable. They've changed the way that the heel locks your foot in to hopefully avoid a little bit of heel slippage. But other than that, you're still paying for the same industry-leading technology. And you are paying, they're quite expensive, as are a lot of the super shoes on test. And my strong opinion here is you should save these for race day. If you want to buy a pair of racing shoes to run a PB in, these are them. But they're not stable, and they're actually quite uncomfortable and strange to run at paces that aren't your race pace. So bear that in mind. You shouldn't be buying these if you're thinking about wearing them for anything other than racing.
As far as carbon racers go, the Saucony Endorphin Pro 2 has an awful lot going for it. It's slightly cheaper than some of its direct competitors, but I also felt that it was a bit more of a stable shoe. When you first put carbon racers on, if you're not used to them, they can feel a little bit wobbly, but straight out of the box for the Endorphin Pro 2, it did feel less alien and more of a stable shoe. So there's really not a whole lot of difference between the Saucony Endorphin Pro 2 and its predecessor. So there's an updated lace loop and the heel is a little bit of a snugger fit. But besides that, if you've already got the original ones, you're not really missing out on much and probably don't need to upgrade unless you've run loads of miles in them. So for me, I found that these are less bouncy than a lot of the carbon plated racing shoes. So they feel like a really sort of stable and smooth ride. They're not as bouncy as a lot of the carbon plated racers are. I actually really enjoyed running in them because of that. And a lot of that's down to Saucony's speed roll tech through the midfoot. So great for speedy stuff, great for longer stuff, great for shorter stuff, easy stuff, a great all-rounder. Basically what I'm trying to say. I did find that the fit on these was a little small. In fact, so small, I had to go up by half a size.
Much like the Next Percent, the HOKA Carbon X2 is a younger sibling looking to follow in the footsteps of its predecessor. It's kept the rubberized outsole but made the midsole foam slightly lighter, more responsive and more cushioned, and the gusseted tongue still helps to keep your foot securely locked in place. So the first impressions with HOKA's Carbon X2 is that it's much firmer than something like the Next Percent, but slightly more comfortable and cushioned than the original Carbon X, so they made a big difference there. It's got a much lower drop at 5mm than some of the other shoes that we're talking about, but that's pretty standard for HOKA, and it's slightly heavier than a shoe like the Nike as well. All of those things combine to not give you the springiest, bounciest run compared to some of the others, but because of that, it does feel incredibly smooth and it rocks you forward onto your toes, propelling you forwards. Because of that smooth ride, closer feel to the road, it's been touted as an ultra marathon shoe, so one that you can go beyond the marathon distance in to really propel you to greater heights at that distance, and I can see why that would make sense. Now compare that to the Rocket X, HOKA's other super shoe, and for that one you'd likely want to just stick to race distances and shorter ones up to the marathon potentially. With the Carbon X2 you might be able to get a trainer where you can run longer race distances as well as doing some training runs as well, and at a price point that's quite a lot cheaper than most of the other super shoes we're talking about, £160.
When you hold the Brooks Hyperion Elite 2 in your hand, it is a smidge heavier than some of its racing counterparts, but don't let that fool you. This is certainly a fast shoe. It's got a carbon fibre propulsion plate in the midfoot to really get you going on those intervals. They have a super breathable and lightweight upper. In fact, it's so lightweight that the first time you put it on, when you wiggle your toes around, you might feel like your big toe might go through the top. They do have quite a high stack height, but despite this, they feel like an incredibly stable ride. Really enjoyed running in the Brooks Hyperion 2. They really propel you forwards, and they just make you feel fast from the minute they go on your feet. The fit is true to size. I've not had any issues with the width of them at all. So, as with the rest of the shoes in this section, it's worth pointing out they are racing shoes. So these aren't your shoes that you'll go on everyday runs in. So these are the shoes that I would reserve for park run or an interval session.
Unlike the Novablast 2 from Asics, the Metaspeed Sky uses FF Blast Turbo foam technology aimed purely at performance. There's a full-length carbon plate in there too, as well as a rubber outsole aimed at improving grip and durability. Asics' first foray into the super shoe world was with the Meta Racer, but it wasn't a real super shoe. It only had half a carbon plate and a pretty low stack height, so it couldn't really take advantage of all of the new technology. So now with the Metaspeed Sky, this is a genuine Next Percent rival. It's got a lower drop, a bit like the HOKA, so it's a 5mm drop, so that is quite different to the Nike and the Saucony, for example. But with that lower drop, you do feel, again, more stable, closer to the road, and it feels like it has a smoother transition and a little bit less wobbly than something like the Nike. So there were more of a range of speeds that I felt comfortable running at. And that's one of the most important notes for any of the super shoes that we're considering here. I found there was a different sweet spot for every single super shoe that I've tested in terms of what pace felt the best. So it is quite personal, and it's also quite race distance dependent. Coupled with the lower drop, Asics have used a new version of the same foam that's in the Novablast, which is the FF Blast. In this case, it's called the FF Blast Turbo, and it is firmer. It's firmer than the Novablast, it's firmer than the Nike, and probably the Saucony as well. So bear that in mind. That firmer doesn't necessarily mean worse or even less comfortable. It's just personal preference. As well as having a different sweet spot, each shoe fits slightly differently as well. I've got quite a narrow foot that stays narrow all the way through the forefoot, and this felt like the widest shoe that I'd tested, so bear that in mind based on your foot shape.
The Adizero Adios Pro 2 from Adidas is a shoe that I am incredibly familiar with, having put lots of miles in my Berlin training and in fact running the race in them too. The updates from the first iteration of this shoe make it look wildly different and makes them an incredible racer. So the winner of Berlin Marathon last year was actually wearing these exact shoes. So they've been on the feet of some pretty high profile elite athletes winning right across the world at half marathon and marathon distances. So that kind of tells you that these shoes are pretty special. Now, as someone who runs on their tippy toes, midfoot, these shoes are actually ideal for me because you can really feel the energy return, the bounce, the push that they give you to run fast. And what's really cool is that you can see the energy rods running down the bottom of the sole, so you can see them when you turn the sole over, which is pretty cool. On first look, it is a little bit worrying that the outsole of this shoe is so smooth, but it does actually grip really well, especially around tight corners on races when you're trying to run fast too. Fit wise, these are true to size, fit absolutely perfectly straight out the box. And I know we say nothing new on race day, but my first run in these was a 7K local race, which I did pretty well at.
Last of the races, but by no means least, is the New Balance FuelCell RC Elite version 2, and this checks a lot of race-ready boxes. High stack height, bouncy midsole foam, full-length carbon plate, nice comfy upper and lacing system. Check, check, check. This one's ready to go. New Balance are already starting to evolve their super shoes. They had the TC and then the RC Elite V1, and this is the RC Elite V2. And the update here is they've increased the stack height almost right up to the limit that's allowed under regulations. So I think it's around 39 millimeters, and they've made it slightly heavier. But with that extra weight comes extra comfort. And for me, this is the shoe out of all of the super shoes that I felt most comfortable running at the widest range of paces in. So at the top end, it didn't feel quite as fast as the next percent, but it was the only shoe that I consider running slightly slower in and not feel like it was really strange to be running in a shoe. They do feel very bouncy, probably the one shoe that's the closest to the next percent in terms of bounce. So I did like that. I also like the laces. They actually start a little bit further back on the shoe than some of the other shoes. And I found that actually helped me to get a really nice fit where I was locking my midfoot in place. So for me, whilst the next percent is my go-to choice for an all-out race, for a shoe that's more versatile in the super shoe category, this is the one that allowed me to run at the most different paces comfortably. Our last category is the best shoes under £100, so those that we still think offer quality but at an affordable price point. It's a great, no-nonsense shoe that I wouldn't hesitate to recommend to someone new to running or to someone more experienced who's looking for a bargain really in terms of value. Now, it's not an all-out race day shoe, but it's not trying to be. It does everything else really well. It holds your foot really securely, provides an adequate amount of cushioning, although it's not a soft shoe. So if you do like a really soft shoe, this one might not be for you. And the outsole gives really good grip in all sorts of different conditions. In fact, that's one of the most impressive things here, and it hardly wore at all during my testing. As I said, it's not the most cushioned shoe out there, but because of that, it's actually really light. So if you're looking for a lightweight shoe that could do everything you need it to do and last for a long time at a good price, it's really worth considering.
The New Balance 680 V7s are an absolute steal for the shoe that they are. They feature New Balance's fresh foam technology, and at under £100 for this shoe, can't really go wrong for beginners and all-rounders alike. The New Balance 680 does come up on the snug side, to the point where I had to check to make sure that I had the right size and hadn't been sent the wrong ones. So I would definitely go up by at least half a size in this shoe. That said, it's an excellent all-rounder. It handles really well off-road as well as on the pavement, because the outsole is super grippy and it feels really comfortable for your easy days, pretty much anything.
Okay, so this last shoe isn't technically under £100 in terms of retail price, but actually right now you can pick this up for under £100, so we thought it was worth including. Now the HOKA Rincon 3 might be one of the HOKA's cheaper shoes, but that doesn't mean that you're missing out on much. In fact, there's a compression molded EVA midsole combined with a Meta Rocker technology, both of which combine to propel you forward without weighing you down. Soft, light and fast is what HOKA say about the Rincon 3, and I have to agree that is what you get. They instantly feel comfortable out of the box, and they're also instantly recognizable. I love the colorway, they're actually really cool. They also feel nice and smooth, and I felt actually at my best running in these at a tempo type pace, where I felt like I could really get rolling because they're so light. They feel like a racing shoe, even though they're an everyday trainer and have a whole lot of cushioning that's going to look after your feet. Don't forget HOKA's signature drop, 5mm here, so if you're not used to that, you'll have to bear in mind transitioning to them. But if you are used to that, or you don't find that gives you any issues with your Achilles or your calves, then these are a good value, very light, fast feeling shoe that are really worth considering.
Time now for the presenter pick. So the shoe that Andy and I have loved testing the most from this roundup. For me, it might not come as much of a surprise. It's the Brooks Hyperion Elite 2. I've absolutely loved running in this shoe. It makes me feel fast, it's a stable ride, it's really lightweight, and I've really enjoyed doing some speedier interval work in this shoe.
And now I'm not doing very much speed work at all, so I've gone for an all-rounder, in this case the Pegasus 38. And any brand that gets to a 38 iteration of a pair of shoes is doing something right, and the small changes that they've made from the 37 have definitely made it better for me. Honourable mentions goes to Asics Metaspeed Sky and also to Nike's Next Percent, which does feel incredibly fast, but I'm sticking with these ones.
Standard Andy, can't just pick one. Have you got any questions about any of the shoes that we've reviewed in this video? Or maybe we've missed out your favourite that you're running in at the moment? Tell us in the comments below.
And we'll see you next time on the Running Channel.